Dear Diary.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary, wow, today was a really hard day.
Dear Diary, I find sometimes my life can be hard.
Dear Diary, it will pass and it will be okay.
Dear Diary, I feel like today is going to be...
Shh, the Indigo Diaries. Dear Diary, welcome world to the Indigo Diaries. First, let me introduce you back to Series 1, The World Through Your Eyes with me, Tasha Hickling. The Indigo Diaries is a podcast for those who want to learn about ADHD through others' experiences. So as always, thanks everyone for coming in and listening. And if it's your first time, then welcome. And go back and look at all the others, but welcome. And if you're returning, then welcome back. I just want to say a huge thank you to the response that I've had for volunteers for coming onto this podcast. It really means so much to me and to the community that you are coming on and telling your story. So without a doubt, I'm going to introduce our next guest, okay? And I'm really, really excited to have a new guest and a fellow Brit. And this lady reached out to me on Instagram, and it gave me another great reason why I love online community, because it's just amazing that you can put something out there. Someone's like, I want to share my story. So without any doubt, I'm going to introduce Bebe.
Hi.
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Bebe. So Bebe grew up in the heart of London, above a pub in the centre of Borough Market. Initially a shy girl, but never without an instrument, pub life soon had her bursting out of her shell, even playing her mini glockenspiel in front of the locals some days after school. Bebe has written songs since being a teenager, but was always hesitant to put her experiences into words. However, after being diagnosed with PTSD and ADHD as an adult, she found that she suddenly had a lot more to say, and songwriting was the way she could say it. Bebe has always been a pop kid with a love for rock and roll, David Bowie being her strongest influence since she was 10. Despite hitting low moments over the years, she has remained an optimist, turning her darkest moments into soaring anthems that will make you want to dance. It makes me want to dance just thinking about it. So if you want the full bio, as I've just read it, then please look in the description below with all of Bebe's details of how to get in contact with her and how to hear her. I can't even imagine her amazing music. So, Bebe, I was going to ask you where you want to begin, but we talked about this before. So my first question for you today is, when did ADHD come into your life?
Oh, ADHD came into my life very suddenly. I mean, obviously not because I've had it my entire life, but I didn't know I had it. So I think it was about a year and a half ago now. I basically was referred to a psychiatrist because I was really struggling at the time, just having huge anxiety attacks and really bad OCD as well. I didn't quite know it was OCD, but it was either my dad or mum or the doctor, and I don't know why I've combined them all in my head. But someone noticed that there was a pattern of when the OCD would get really bad, or we just thought it was, I don't know, rumination at the time, and it would always be after a certain event that was quite triggering. So I got referred to see a psychiatrist about PTSD, and even that I was like, well, I just thought that was something that, you know, veterans got, and I just felt a bit like I didn't have a right to have it in a weird way. But at the same time, I was so muddled. I was like, someone give me some answers. So I went to see a psychiatrist about that. And at the end of the session, he said, okay, well, you have OCD and you have that because it's a coping mechanism, because you have PTSD. So we need to look at, he was like, it's like a pyramid and this is what's going on. And at the bottom, I think you have ADHD. And I went, huh?
I love that you went, huh? What?
I was like, what? I think because it is so little talked about. I was one of those people who my response in my head was, is that real? Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
And he told me a bit about it, and he said, you know, go away and research it, because it also displays very differently in girls and women, which is, I think, is why this has never been brought up to you before. And I went away and started really delving into it. I found, do you know, I think the channel, yeah, it's called How to ADHD.
How to ADHD, yeah,
Okay,
the best channel, the most watched, yeah.
Oh my God. Just gave me all the answers I needed.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Just covers everything.
Yeah.
So good. And everything started kind of making sense. And I was like, oh, okay. Right. And I started realizing how much I was masking, but not just to other people, to myself as well.
Okay.
And it was such a big moment, and I then had to go and have separate assessments for it. And I was already quite sure that I had it, but you know, there was still the doubt in my head, like, oh, but maybe I don't, maybe I'm just, you know, disorganized and a bit whatever. But yeah, a few months later I had those assessments, and then I got my official diagnosis for combined type.
Okay. Me too.
High five. Which, yeah, was a big moment. And I feel like I can't now imagine. I mean, the lady who gave me my official diagnosis said to me, she said, you know, when people get a diagnosis like this, that is a neurodevelopmental disorder, there's going to be with you for life. It is normal for it to take about 1.5 years to settle in and to accept it. And I think it's been 1.5 years now, so I can say that feels quite true. But I just can't believe I didn't know for all that time. Yeah, madness, absolute madness.
It is crazy, like when you, if you don't mind me, how old were you when you were diagnosed?
24, I think.
Okay.
23 or 24, yeah.
So you're saying it's crazy how you've not known for that long, and then I love that you when he said, oh, at the bottom, you went, and then you did the research and you went, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it about that research that made you kind of change your mind?
Do you know what? I think it was a combination of the research and then just kind of living my life for a few weeks and just keeping an eye on the things I'd read. Because like I said, I to myself had said, no, I don't, you know, I'm not disorganized and I'm not like this. Although I'd literally had like I'd had a friend say to me in a moment of frustration, and it just came back to me. They said, Bebe, you're so intelligent, I don't understand how you make these mistakes. And I was just like, no, that they're just being silly, like that's not a thing. And in true ADHD fashion, I've just completely gone off the train of thought that I was on.
Sorry. That always happens. Don't worry. It's live. This is what happens. This is our life, right?
It is. It really is. The research, that's it. Yeah, so I think I started reading into it, and I was quite open from the get-go with it, just because I think with my other struggles, I'd been pushing them down for so long, I just didn't have the capacity to keep anything in anymore. So I was quite open in saying to people, oh, you know, well, I think I have ADHD. And one of my friends that I went to school with said, well, you did really well at school, so surely you can't have ADHD. And I started seeing articles about women who had done really well at school, because school had given them structure and and were organized by their parents and their teachers, and luckily I had a great school life and had great parents, and I think that really rang true for me. I did, looking back, get into states of overwhelm, and I would struggle with certain things, but I always had some sort of support to catch me if that happened. And then reading that coming out of school is when it really starts to display as a thing, because you don't have that around you, and not living at home anymore, and all of that stuff, and then how it can affect anxiety and stuff like that, because your brain never stops going. And then it was suddenly like, I was like, wait, this isn't how everyone is, because if you've always been that way, then I guess why would you question it?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like I'm so sorry. See, that's my reminder to take my meds. What was I saying? So reading how it affects anxiety and all these other things, and how it can enter your life, and just realizing that not everyone's brains works like this, because why would you think that your brain literally worked different? Because you just assume that's how it is. I mean, I always had, like, I know people say this and like it's such a cliche, but I guess it isn't, because that's what we do experience if you have ADHD. I did always have some sort of sense that I was operating on a slightly different field to other people, just in the sense of, like, I mean, I've always been super into arts and music and drama and all that stuff, and just I would just notice, like,
I love that you're laughing when you're remembering it. I love it.
I just always felt like I had a never-ending, like, not in life, just in those circumstances, I just had a never-ending pot of energy, and I didn't understand when other people, when they would like be like, oh, but there's not enough energy, and you need to. I'm like, why don't they have enough energy? Like, guys, just get it out of your pot. There's so much energy.
I love that, like a pot of energy, and it's just like your pot's like here and everyone's is down, and you're like, come on, just take it, come on.
And like, even if my pot was empty, like, it was never empty, just because I think my normal playing field is so high. And even though I know girls don't display as hyper as boys, I've always been quite hyper. And I think people just see it as quite charming, and like, oh, that's just how Bebe is. She's just very enthusiastic and come out as aggressively. So I think it was just seen as, oh, that's nice.
No, you're right, and I can relate a lot to that with the hyperactivity. They always say, oh, it goes, and I'm like, yeah, when? When?
Yeah, why do people say that? I'm like, it doesn't go.
It never goes. Even at like 11 o'clock at night, it does not go.
Like, even because I started my meds about 2 months ago, and I'm on non-stimulants, and my big worry was, oh, what if I lose, like, because it's hard to say, because a hyperactive mind can be quite difficult.
It can, yeah.
That is something that I was kind of ready to calm down a bit, but like my hyperactive self just being a bit wacky, I was like, I don't want that to go. And my parents, the other day, I saw them and they were like, yeah, don't worry about that.
I like that you said, going back to what you said about like being quite open from the get-go, and it sounds like that. So even after a year and a half, you saying like, I don't want that to go. Like, so it's like you kind of, just from what I've seen, kind of grown to have that understanding of, the great things and the struggles. What's it like for you to be, be it open from the get-go? What's that look like?
It's a weird one, because I know before I said I was struggling for a good 2 years and I'd really kept it on the down low. I didn't really talk to anyone about it. And that, I think, came from a lot of, I've always been seen as, happy-go-lucky Bebe, and like Bebe's always bringing like the sunshine. She's always cheerful. She's always, and it was like I felt this responsibility to remain that way and not be struggling. So I kind of, went through those few years of keeping all of that stuff in, which hopefully makes sense to what I'm about to say. But I think generally as a person, I am quite open. It's just, I think, how I've been raised and grown up, and I probably is part of the ADHD. Like I, even if I try and keep stuff to myself, I just can't.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
There's my favorite quote from the US Office is Michael Scott. All my friends are like, "You are Michael Scott," and at first I was like, "What?" But now I'm like, "That's kind of cool." But there's an episode where someone shouts at him because he didn't keep a secret, and he just goes, "You and I both know that I cannot and will not keep a secret."
You're like, yeah, that's me. That's me.
Like, that is me. But I've definitely, since the diagnosis, become a lot more so, and I think that kind of comes from just, I was so exhausted and tired, and to be honest, really sad at the time this was all going on, and I didn't have the energy to not be open about it. And I know it takes energy to be open, but I just suddenly realized how much easier it was to just try and voice these things and be myself. And I really went through the experience of, when I spoke to other people about it, about all of it, about ADHD and PTSD, I found that the more open I was, the more it would garner the same response back. And then I would hear about other people's struggles that I mean, people I knew for years that I never ever knew went through, similar things or different things. And that was such a comfort to me.
Yeah.
That I was like, well, I'm not going to stop doing this. But it comes with the opposite side as well. There are some people who don't always understand, and a lot of times you have to really keep patient, which can be hard for us ADHDers.
It can be, the patience. Yeah.
Because there are a lot of naysayers out there, and a lot of people who don't believe it's a thing. And I mean, I wouldn't say I was firm, I was never one of those people that was like, ADHD isn't real. And if someone came to me and said they had ADHD, I'd be like, no, you don't. It isn't real. I'm very much like, I would always say, oh, well, tell me more about it. I just don't know. But certainly my dad at first was very much like, I don't think you have that. That's what, really? And my mum, on the other hand, was like, oh shit, I think I've got that too.
Yeah, that's usually the case from one parent. Usually the case.
But what I really found was, neither of them they were both brilliant, and they were both very much saying, we want you to feel better and get better, and whatever we can do to facilitate that, we're here for. And I think the best thing to getting us all on the same page was just going through it, being open about it, researching it, sending the research round, getting There was a point where I started saying to my dad and my ex-boyfriend, who I was with at the time, because they were, and this was lockdown as well, so we were together all the time.
Yes.
And I realized that it was up to me, if I wanted them to understand, to give them the tools to understand. So I, take them aside and be like, oh, can you watch these videos with me, the How to ADHD videos? And we'd sit down and we watch them, and they go, oh, okay. Oh, wait, you do that? Oh.
Yeah.
And like, sorry, I was just gonna say it was a slow, like, it's taken its time, and it has taken patience and all of this stuff. But if people are open to listen, then I will always talk at them.
I love that. If they're open to, if they're going to listen, I'll just talk. And that's it.
And the nicest thing was the other day, my dad sent me a message saying, oh, there's a really good call-in about ADHD on Radio 2 right now. I thought you might like to know. And I replied saying, oh, well, what is it? And he said, oh, it was this girl, she sounded a lot like you, like she did well at school, and she was organized by her teachers and her parents, and now she's an adult and she had a kid, and it all became really difficult. And I was just like, come on, Dad, look who's on Team ADHD.
I love that. Team ADHD.
It's so nice. It was so nice.
I love that you were that open to go from, and like you say, there are those people that are like, ADHD is not real, like, don't be silly. But if you're willing to be open and vulnerable, right, the more other people are. And I like that what you're doing is educating people, because that's how you shift the awareness, you shift the perspectives. Yeah. And I love that you've done that with your own people, and having that, because I know a lot of people are scared to do that. And the fact that you've been open enough, and you deserve that after all that, you've been open with everybody to have that. What would you say the difference that you kind of have that openness with people? Do you think that's made a difference in the way you've kind of come on from having the knowledge that you've got ADHD?
I say it has made a huge difference. And I'm very, very aware that I'm in a very privileged situation, that I have supportive parents and supportive friends and people who will be open to letting me teach them things about it. And not everybody has that opportunity, which I think is why I feel so passionately about being open about it, because I know that I am in this situation where I can be, and hopefully that can have like a trickle effect to those people around me who might reach other people. But I mean, it's made my journey easier, because the more open I've been about it, the more people that I am around understand it. So then if I I'm having some struggles with it, if I'm running late or I've forgotten something or whatever, like
the typical things, right?
Yeah. I mean, even in some friendships I've had, I think people used to think, or they used to take it personally if I dropped the ball, but now they understand that it's not personal whatsoever. And it's just made everything that little bit easier. It's not, it's not been the case with everybody. I grew up in a pub, and my family runs pubs, and I've been around that for my whole life. And there are older locals who don't get it. And I have had certain situations where I'll get, upset or frustrated, because you can say as much as you want, but they're not listening, really.
They're not.
So I mean, it's been a journey. It's been up and down.
That's life, right? Up and down, up and down.
That is life. But overall, I feel like it's been huge in allowing me to accept myself and acknowledge the things I was masking and embrace the good things.
Wow. I love that. So kind of having that environment and having that openness from you and everyone around you has helped you kind of accept it and talk about those masking things. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've just listened in awe. Like it's really refreshing and a very different perspective, and I really like that.
Thank you.
Well, that's the one reason why I do this podcast.
I hope it's all made sense. I like, when you get to the end of a sentence and you're like, did I just say stuff?
Yeah, does that make sense to what I said before? Does everyone else get it? We get it.
Yeah.
Well, I do.
Okay, cool.
It makes sense. You're on the light path, don't worry. And if it doesn't, then people could just rewind and try and work out what's going on.
I this is a bit off topic, but I hosted a pub quiz last week at my dad's pub because COVID has been horrendous for pubs, and it's trying to get some business back in on a quiet day, and it was really good, and loads of people came down. But I've never hosted a quiz before, and I was stood there and I had this question. I was reading them off my phone and I asked it, and I kind of had this sense at the end of the question that whatever I had just said didn't make any sense. And then I just had to pause and go, did I just ask, did that question make sense? And the whole room, there were like 50 people, and they all went, no.
I love that you've got the awareness to ask about it. You knew.
I had no idea what I said, but I just had a sensing that whatever it was didn't make any sense.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And we hope that in this first half that Bebe's made sense. She made sense to me, and this is late for me. So if she made sense for me and it's late and I'm off my meds, then she must be doing something right.
I hope so. Hope so, everyone.
Right, well, we're going to come back after the break, and we're going to go a bit more in depth to kind of this masking, and then kind of seeing what's next for Bebe, and kind of let's talk about this music. So I'm excited.
Cool.
Okay, and we're out. If you would like any more information on Indigo Hub or our Indigo support group, then please check out our website below, or our link to our social media platforms, or email at indigohub.adhd@gmail.com. If you would like to offer any comments, feedback, get support, or if you're interested in the world hearing your story, then please reach out through any of our avenues. As said before, have a positive week. Check in again later. And we're out. The Indigo Diaries. And we're back. And just like as always, I always start with this, but I just think it's funny. Always get off topic during the break. And it's like, oh, right. It was meant to be like a 1 minute break. Ended up quite a long time. We had some funny stories there. So if you weren't here before, then rewind now, because you would have missed a great half talking to Bebe. So Bebe, welcome back.
Thank you.
I say welcome back, but it's been like 10 minutes. But no one else knows that. So you were talking in the first half about kind of your diagnosis and then being open and having people to be open with, and kind of like afterwards. So you mentioned a lot about masking and kind of having that realization that you were masking a lot to yourself and to others. I just wondered if you would talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the things, it's funny when I say masking, because like I don't think I was doing it well.
I love that.
Like the things that I would do, I always forget stuff, like physically. The biggest example I can think of was I did a show. We were taking a play up to Edinburgh Fringe, and we were going from London to Edinburgh, and we had to take all the set and the props and the costumes, and then we were going for 2 weeks, so we had to take all our own stuff as well, and like our clothes and all this stuff. And we got to King's Cross Station, and we'd gone in 3 black cabs so we could fit everything in, and we get there and there's about 15 minutes before the train goes. And, you know, we're all standing there. There's about 10 of us and everyone's got their stuff. And I suddenly go, oh, but has anyone seen my suitcase?
Oh no! Was it your own clothes?
Yeah.
Oh
And
no!
it was such a big suitcase. That, honestly, it had my life in it.
Oh
and
no!
Okay. And you know when your brain just kind of goes just blank.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was there, and obviously it was my fault because it was my suitcase. And I think my masking self, to me, I was saying to myself, like, no, this is not your fault. No, this must have been in another taxi, or I don't know. And then I just start desperately running back to where the cabs are to see if this cab has got in the queue to pick up people.
Yeah.
Like at the taxi rank, and I'm just running around thinking, oh my god, what have I done? Why is this happening? I can't believe this is happening. You know, like I say a lot, like, why does this always happen to me? It doesn't make sense. Like, there's not a reason for it. Obviously there was a reason for it. And luckily I ran outside and I saw my suitcase in the middle of the outside area, and there was a security guard reaching it just as I'd got to it, and I was like, oh my god. And I must have left it in the taxi, and the taxi driver put it there, thankfully. And I got there and the security guard was like, is this yours? I went, yeah, I'm so sorry. And he went, you cannot leave a suitcase on its own in the middle of King's Cross Station. And I said, believe me, I know, because this was in, you know, the year of, there were a lot of terror attacks going on.
Oh yeah.
There had been them in Borough Market where I grew up and where the pubs were. So
Yeah.
you know, I was very, very aware of how bad that was. And I was like, I know, I am so sorry. I don't know why this has happened. So thankfully that turned out the best it could have in that situation. But you know, I would just do stuff like that all the time. I've been through like 10 different debit cards. I would just lose stuff. I would just forget stuff places. Things like that. I would forget me. I used to run a little fringe theatre in my dad's pub.
Oh, nice.
And it was like a really good job for me, but also a really bad job for me, because I was in charge, which was good, but also meant that, you know, there was no one really, there just weren't any consequences for me
Of anything that you did. Yeah.
Which I think I need, not because, you know, I don't want to do the work or whatever. I just forget, like, I will just forget stuff. Like, I once luckily walked through into the pub to go down into the theatre, and it was just by chance that I did it. And when I walked into the pub, there were these two guys and they went, hi Bebe, so nice to meet you. I was like, hi. And when I said hi, I had no idea what was going on. It was just like, oh, hello, yeah, but oh, nice to meet you, and sat down at a table with them. And I was suddenly thinking, am I meant to be in a meeting right now? Is this a meeting? Because I have no idea.
What was it? What was it?
It was a meeting that I'd arranged with these guys for them to put on a show in the theatre, and I just had forgotten. And luckily I just went along with it until they started talking about their show and who they were, and it slowly started coming back to me. I was like, oh okay, cool. So I honestly, I think a lot of times my masking just comes from me pretending that I know what's going on when I have no idea. And a lot of the times I've gotten away with it by chance. And other times I'll, you know, make up an excuse or something. But yeah, just these little things all the time. You know, I would send contracts and I'd be like, oh, I sent it with the wrong date on it. And I'd be like, okay, I'll send it again. and then I'd send it with something else wrong on it. Like, oh my god, this is so embarrassing. Why can't I get it right? But I think I would just ignore it or pretend like I knew, and just kind of wash it off every time, like it wasn't a frequent thing, even though it absolutely was.
Do you think that kind of had any effect later on, like kind of that kind of masking, kind of that, like you said, kind of just going, oh no, it's nothing, it's, oh, I'll send it again. Did that have an effect later on, kind of when you realized that?
Yeah, 100%. I think I realized that, I think this is common for a lot of people with ADHD, that I had kind of collected all of this anxiety from it, because things would go wrong and I would suddenly be really overwhelmed and stressed, and I think one of my bigger symptoms is emotional dysregulation and overwhelm, and I tend to not get angry very much, but I would just cry all the time, because I would just get so stressed out, and feel like I couldn't handle it, and then I would feel to myself that I was an imposter, like I shouldn't be doing these things, and I was lazy and I didn't work hard enough, and actually I was go all the time, but some of the time, it's that thing where you're sat there and you are thinking of all the things you need to do, and your brain is going so fast or working so hard, but you're not doing anything. And all of those things, I think, did really build up. So by the time I was told I had it and researched it, I kind of had this whole awakening, I think, about, okay, what do I really want to do? What isn't working for me? What can I stop pretending that I like and I'm good at, just to seem like I have it together? Because what's the point? What is the point of me doing that? So yeah, it kind of was a big moment.
It sounds like a big moment, and I love that. Like, what's the point? What's the point in trying too hard and trying so much when, like, who am I doing it for? And so since you kind of took that mask off, as we talk about drama, do you think that relates back to the openness? What has that been like for you, that awakening or that taking the mask off?
To be honest, it's been really liberating. And I'm really conscious of, I think I'm such an eternal optimist that sometimes I make it sound like it's all easy peasy, and my goodness, it isn't. No. And taking it off was really, really scary in a lot of senses. And especially, like, I'm very good at being open with people I know really well and I feel safe with, and I will do it with other people, but it like fills me with dread and anxiety, because you don't know how people will respond. And I think one thing I did find difficult was suddenly realizing, I mean, it's quite a big thing to suddenly be told that your brain is not the same as everyone else's brain.
Yes, it's humongous.
Yeah, and that you do have a disability, because that feels like a big word. Not that it, I think we should get to a place where it shouldn't be such a big word. But yeah, I think I did go through periods of feeling ostracized and different and weird, and taking off the mask, in a sense, comes with a lot of that, because like I said to you before, I'm pretty hyper. And I've always embraced that, and I've always been quite kooky and loud and what have you, but sometimes I'd let it out more, because
Yeah.
I would think, okay, well, you don't need to mask this anymore, so just let it out. But then you do have people going, whoa, you're a lot.
Yeah, oh yeah, I hate that. When they go, you're a lot, you're too much. What? Oh, okay.
Right?
Thanks.
Honestly, I went on a date with a guy. Oh, I feel like I shouldn't say this publicly. He'll never hear this. It's fine.
Okay, this is not you if you're listening.
This isn't you. To be fair to him, he was a lovely guy. He was very nice. But he did say to me, and I could tell as soon as he said it, that he regretted it. He was like, oh yeah, but you are quite full on. And I was like, I went, did you just say I'm full on? And he went, yes. I went, well, do you think that? And he went, yes, but in a good way.
You're like,
I was like, I could kind of understand how he was trying to say it, but at the same time I was like, way to make a girl feel just, a bit out of place on a first date. There wasn't a second date.
I was about to say, I bet there wasn't a second date. In my head I was thinking, was there a second? No, because if someone said that to me, there'd be no second date.
No. But do you know what? I said this to a good friend of mine after it happened, and she had the best response ever. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman, and she said to me, Bebe, you're not too much. People just have small hands.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah. I remember that. I keep that with me because I love it so much, We're all different, and what is wrong with some of us being louder and more out there and a bit crazier than others? Because then we wouldn't have people, people like David Bowie, and we wouldn't have people like, Youngblood. He's one of my favorite musicians at the moment. We wouldn't have these people, and life would be boring. So, oh, did I say that all too far away?
You're good. Carry on. No, you're right though. We wouldn't have all those people, and I just thought that was amazing that you went into your own world, and then you started. The mic got further and further away. But I heard every word.
Sorry.
No, you're all good. I love it, and I'm going to keep this in there because I think it's brilliant. No, but that's what happens when you're so passionate about something. And like you said, there's who says that neurotypical is the right way to be, and I'm always a big believer. Who says that being ADHD, being someone that has a disability or whatever, however people see it, why is that wrong?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, I think the idea that some people have of, it's something that you can always control, because it's not.
No.
I think that's the biggest misunderstanding about ADHD, is that people seem to think it's some sort of different condition where you have some control over these things. They're just are traits that you have. And it's like, no, I can't help it. It's I can't, it's the same as, I don't know, here's me going off having a big comparison and I don't have one in my head.
So it's like, I don't know, I don't really want to say that. It's like being addicted to sugar or something. I don't know, just random. Like when you I'm not saying ADHD is like an addiction. I'm just saying, like, when you want sugar all the time, you can't help but have it because you're so used to it. Like, it's not a very good comparison, but you know what I mean.
Well, I guess it's like, if you, like, this is such a stupid comparison, but it's if you have a cough, right, and you need to cough, and you can't help the cough because they're like, this stuff needs to get out. Like,
but it's true.
You're not going to be like, oh, dude, or it's like, oh, sorry, this is such a silly one as well, but I remember being a kid once and I had the hiccups, and my brother goes, Baby, stop hiccuping, you're so selfish. And I was like, what?
Yeah, like, how are you meant to stop it, and why should we stop it?
I can't stop hiccuping. It's the same with ADHD. Like, I can't.
Yeah,
I can try, but I will not always succeed.
Wow, that's I really like that. And it's that thing when people think you're using it as an excuse, and it's like, no, it's an explanation. Some people do use it as an excuse, and I will say that, but it is it's an explanation, but when people are like, oh, what were you talking about? Like, and you're like, no, I just can't. And sometimes it is like that. And it's like, this is going to happen still, even if I have 25,000 coping strategies, not always going to work.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's just about, I think, like you said, it's not excusing it, but, you know, definitely learning ways of something that I've tried to get better at is I will like interrupt people sometimes and then just go, and then I'll stop and I'll go, I'm so sorry, I just interrupted you. I really didn't mean to. What were you saying?
Yeah.
And, you know, and people are fine with that most of the time. And if they're not, then bye.
I love that. If they're not, then bye. I like that. Being open, right? So as we kind of come in, as you move forward right now, what do you do now to like just some things that you may do now that you didn't do before to help you manage your ADHD or help you kind of, like you said, live your life?
Well, I guess one of the biggest things that has changed in the past 2 months is I started medication, which was something that I decided not to do at first. And I can definitely say that was a stigma-based decision. And I went back to the psychiatrist early this summer, actually, because I was still really struggling. I was struggling with ADHD, I was struggling with PTSD, and I'd been through PTSD therapy, but I was still really struggling. And he said, well, the reason why your PTSD isn't better is because we need to treat the ADHD so that the PTSD can improve. And I was like, oh, whoa. And I'd let this decision be made for me by all these naysayers and all this stuff out there, when really I thought, well, if I'm never going to get rid of this PTSD without medication, then I was just like, decision made. I'm going to try it. I want to find out for myself. It doesn't mean it's forever, but I need to know if this is going to work for me. So I started non-stimulant, mainly because I know stimulant can be quite bad for people with anxiety and PTSD and stuff like that. So I started non-stimulant. I've just reached my highest dose, which is 100 milligrams. And really, that has been such a huge thing for me to be able to start changing some behaviors and, you know, actually enacting things that will help. And has also, I think the biggest difference it's made is the emotional dysregulation that I said was one of my biggest struggles. It's just helped that unbelievably.
Really?
Like,
wow.
Crazy amounts. You know, it's not perfect. I'm still very emotional. And I was really scared of like emotional blunting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I did say before I went on it, I was like, but you know what? I feel like I'm just way up here and like people are like kind of down here somewhere. So I'll probably just be brought down to like somewhere in between there. And it's honestly changed so much for me already. You know, my PTSD, I still struggle with at times, but I feel like I'm getting to the root of it. Definitely I'm a lot less susceptible to triggers, a lot of triggers that I was before. My mood just feels a lot more stable. It's not good. I definitely wouldn't call it stable, but it's more stable.
I like that you do that. Like, my mood's more stable, and every day's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's and that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest changes for me is, you know, I'm trying to do things like I've got a little whiteboard in my room and I try and write stuff down when I remember it so that I will actually do it. And, you know, other things like getting better at using a diary and a planner and stuff like this, which I've never been good at. And still I'm mediocre at. But I think the biggest difference it's made is giving my brain a bit more space. It's not so loud all the time, and I think I can just go easier on myself and try and do more of a strength-based treatment. I'm obviously treating myself, so I just couldn't think of another word.
No, you're right. You're strength-based, yeah.
Yeah, and just sit down and think, right, well, what am I good at, and what can I concentrate on? This is why I started doing so much music, because it's the one thing that I can completely hyper focus on and just get on with it. And I decided that I wanted to start nannying because I love kids, and I know I can work with kids if I'm good with kids, because I guess because
I know what you're gonna say.
It's like when I'm with the kids that I nanny, and they will do something weird to like get a response from me, and I will just join it.
I knew you were gonna say that.
I'm like, try me. Like the other day, the little boy I look after, we were coming home through Battersea Park in London, and he starts going like like a dog or a wolf, and then he looks at me like, yeah, what are you gonna say? I look at him and I was just like, I just did it louder, and he just lost his mind. He thought it was so funny. But like
Brilliant.
that in itself, it's nice for me to have a few hours a day to be around kids who don't judge any of that behavior. They just love it.
That's what's brilliant about kids. I love that I knew you were going to say about the kid thing, but you say about, because I'm exactly the same. So you said, like, I think it's really amazing though, I have to highlight this, that you have come to this place. Like, I know you've got your therapy and your meds and stuff, but you've really come to this place by yourself, and that's very rare. I just wanted to say that, like, like, it's really rare that you've come to that, like, that strength based, because for me, that's basically my philosophy. So that strength based approach and what I'm good at, and concentrating on that. And I think that's actually very inspirational. You've come to that by yourself, and I know you've got the people around, you've got the support systems, but you've come to that conclusion for yourself. And I think that's inspiring.
Oh, thank you so much. This is I'm getting all like shy now.
Sorry, I'll go back to the nanny and the music.
No, but honestly, thank you so much, because that really does mean a lot. And I think my dad always says to me that I can very easily come across like I'm doing way better than I'm doing. This was a problem when he first took me to see the doctors when I was struggling, because I'd just get in there and I'd suddenly be like, yeah, so this is what's wrong, and da 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 da, but would just seem really together. And it has been a journey, and it has been like crazy. So to hear that honestly means so much, and is so nice to hear, and feels very rewarding. And
oh, nice emotion moment. So kind of according to the last kind of few minutes, so tell us about the music and kind of where that comes from and all of that. Tell us about that.
This is where I get excited. I'm gonna have to try and keep my microphone near to my face. So I guess this was one of the big things that I realized in the past few years, because I've always been obsessed with music and very much grown up with it. Because my dad was in a band when he was younger, and I think they stopped just before I was born. And they weren't like mega famous, but they did really well, and did some awesome tours and all this stuff. And then he went into, I think he did a bit of producing, and he also managed songwriters. So when I was really little, we lived in this little flat, and he had kind of like, it's like a cave room under the pavement with no windows, and he had his kind of little officey studio in there where he'd work. and my mum was making documentaries at the time. She was working like in TV and stuff, just being a general badass. I just always think my mum is the biggest badass. It's not to do with much, but just giving her a little shout out.
Shout out to Bebe's mum, the badass.
The badass. And my dad, so when I was like a toddler, my dad would be working from home, and he always tells stories of like him being on the phone, and I would just go in there and literally climb on his head and just like lie on his head, but be quiet so I didn't disturb him, but I was just on his head. And he'd be doing all of this stuff, that was kind of his world. And I remember some of these songwriters, they would come and stay on mattresses on the floor in the living room. Me and my brother once put our hamster like in the sleeping bag of one of
course.
And we'd like close it so it'd just be running around. Bless this poor songwriter. I think he's gone on to do really well though. He's like written for like some cool people. So sorry about that hamster. Cool songwriter, if I ever come across you again. But because this was all around, and my dad is such a pop culture fiend, so every week we'd have Top of the Pops on, and he'd always be playing me new songs. And throughout my whole life he'd say, oh my god, this is this, oh you need to listen to this. And we'd watch so many music documentaries, and he actually pointed it out to me a few years ago. He went, oh, I can just tell, like, you just love it. It's one of the few things that you'll sit down and put everything down and you will just watch it. And I was like, oh yeah. And because I basically got really bad stage fright when I was at school, just surrounding music, not drama for some reason. Very strange. But I basically had this, I entered a piano competition and I played a piece, and I don't think I'd slept much the night before. I don't know what happened, but in the middle of the piece, I didn't even do anything wrong. I just stopped playing for like 5 seconds and just froze. And I was like, and then carried on and finished the piece. But something about that moment just scarred me. So at school, like I did music GCSE and A level, and composition was always my favorite thing. I remember when we got to A level and I said to my teacher, I was like, I'm going to write an orchestral piece for my composition. He went, no, Bebe, no, no. He was like, you've never done this before. You don't know how to do it. Like, that is going to be so much work. And like, no, you just shouldn't. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do it.
Did you do it?
I did do it. And bless him, he was a brilliant teacher. He was called Dr. Pete. And he was so, he just really supported. Even though sometimes people are like, no, you're going too far, he always would help and support. And he was fantastic. And it was like I think he talked me down to like a chamber orchestra.
He got you down on the big one.
Yeah, he talked me down. But I just loved it so much. I just never had the confidence to think that I could, do it. So I left school. I went to drama school. I did a foundation course at drama school, and then went into acting and putting on plays and running this theatre, which I also love. Like, don't get me wrong, and I don't think I will stop doing that. But I just suddenly one day realised, people would say to me, especially like all my friends are, in the arts in some way, that kind of thing. And people would say, oh, well, especially in meetings at the theatre, they'd be like, oh, well, who's your favourite actor? What's your favourite film? What's your favourite play? And I'd be like, and don't get me wrong, there are things that I love and things I've seen that I love, and I do love certain actors and all this stuff, but I would always find that I would just disengage a bit in the conversation the longer it would go on. Whereas I realized if someone started talking to me about music or anything to do with it, I would just go on and on and on. I'd be like, oh, have you seen this documentary? And let me tell you this weird fact. And da 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 da. And like
Bingo, interest.
Yeah. And any pub quiz, like any song that came on, I'd be like, oh, this is this. And everyone would be like, Bebe, why do you know this weird song?
Love that.
I just love it. And I think I realized, I was like, well, this is something that I can just endlessly talk about and obviously love. I just have told myself that I can't do it for some reason. And then one day, I think I was watching the Brits, and the 1975 were performing this song called Sincerity is Scary. Such a good song. And it was so cool. He was like on this like I don't know, this treadmill thing built into the floor, and I was watching it and I was like, oh my god, this is so good. Oh, I want to do that. And I was suddenly like, oh, I have to do it because otherwise I'm just going to spend my whole life being like, why didn't I try that? And then that's kind of from that moment I got really into it. And then I got the ADHD diagnosis and I was like, right, well, I know what the interest is. I know what my hyperfocus is. So why don't I just go for it and have fun and see what happens, basically? Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So I just love that. And you could hear the passion in your voice. And you could hear it and you could see it. And I wish everyone could see the face. You should just, and the microphone, but yeah, I'm proud. You kept the microphone there. It didn't go off.
It between my legs.
You get the microphone there. So what's kind of, as we come to the end, what's next for you?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Is that a loaded question? Sorry.
No, it's not. I'm trying to be better at because obviously at the moment, so I'm nannying and writing music and putting songs out there, but I'm trying to be better at like not, you know, when you can suddenly go like, oh well, I don't know, I'm just like doing this and I'm gonna go, but blah 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 blah. So I'm trying to be better at not doing that. So I just released my third single on Friday, which was very exciting. And I've got an EP. I finished recording an EP, which hopefully will come out before. I'm going to be realistic. It'll probably come out early next year. But I've written a song. One of the songs on the EP is called "Don't Have the Dopamine," and it's
that's brilliant.
A whole song about how I feel ADHD is, and it is like the whole energy of the track as well is just entirely bonkers. So I think that's the one I'm most excited to release. So I'm gonna keep going with that. And just, I don't know, keep plugging away and not giving up really, and keep trying to figure out new ways to tame the beast of ADHD, but at the same time let it flourish.
I love that. Tame the beast of ADHD, but let it flourish at the same time. Love that. And I can't also wait. I think that's going to be my favorite also. Yay. So anyone that's listened to this, go on. All the links are below to find Bebe and to find her music, because I'm sure I'm going to go and listen to her after this. So Bebe, what would you like to kind of round up today with? What would you like to leave our listeners with?
Do you know what because I was thinking about this earlier, and I came across someone who I really admire, and I remember they'd said something that I've actually kept with me for a long time, and the person is Dan Wilson, and he was in Semisonic. I'm really paranoid I'm saying the wrong band name, but I don't think I am. Do you know that song Closing Time? Yeah, so he wrote that song. That's that band, and he also is now just like the coolest songwriter. He wrote Someone Like You with Adele. He's written with Taylor Swift, like Halsey, just just behind so many massive hits, but just isn't the face of it. And I saw it was just a really short video that he'd put on, it's either Instagram or TikTok, and he put it on a while ago, and I refound it last night, and it's just like a 10-second clip of him talking to the camera, and he goes, if you're gonna let your freak flag fly, that's really hard to say, if you're gonna let your freak flag fly, let it fly super high, because otherwise people are just gonna say, that's nice. And I was like, whoa.
Wow, now that's a great ending. So if you're going to let your freak flag fly, flag fly high, then do it.
Yeah, let it fly so high, because what's the point otherwise?
Yeah, and that relates a lot to what we've been talking about today.
Yeah. So let it fly. You do you guys. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Thanks again, BB, and what a great way to come and end. Well, what a great way. I've really, really enjoyed this, and what a great way to end that. Basically, let yourself fly and you be you. And it's been such a pleasure to have met you. So thank you for that.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it so much.
Good. So yeah, again, we leave everyone with another inspirational diary, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And someone that I know I was like I wanted to stand up at some place. I was like, I can relate to that. I can relate. So maybe you'll be able to find some relation in this as well. And it might give you some peace that there is someone else like that out there that is struggling and also thriving like you could, or you want to, or you are. And I just want to say, as we finish today, if you would like to share your story with others, that can make a huge difference. And if you want to, then always reach out through our social media avenues, which are always below. And look out for next week as we launch another episode of Series 3 and maybe another guest for Series 1. And we're going to sign out, and why not let your freak flag fly high? Yes, I did it. So we're signing out, Indigos. We'll see you soon. And we're out.
Dear diary.
Dear diary.
Dear diary.
Today is ending. I'll check in again tomorrow.
Tomorrow is a brand new beginning.
Good night, sweet dreams.
I think tomorrow will be...
Shh.